want to welcome and thank you all so very much for being here today for our 10th annual Rainier Scholars Luncheon. All right? So, easy stop. My name is Sarah Smith, and I continue to have the great pleasure of serving as the Executive Director at Rainier Scholars. And it is with deep joy and immense gratitude that I look out each and every year and feel so much thanks for the work that all of you have helped make possible over the last 15 years. A decade of luncheons led me to reflect on the spring of 2007, that point in time of our luncheon debut. Our first cohort graduates who are sitting in this room as alums attending were still 2 years shy of their high school graduation. Our college graduates who we honor as part of today's ceremony were not, whom we honor today as part of this event were mere 7th graders. And our high school seniors in the room today, decked out in their college sweatshirts, were but 3rd graders, still blissfully unaware of the hard work and rigor that awaited them 2 years down the road. And as for me, my hair was blonder, my eyesight much better, as evidenced by my reading, and I was 8 months pregnant, so I was really the one that had no idea the hard work and challenge that awaited me. I was still very much hoping in the unseen that the commitments and promises we were making to scholars and their families in those early years in exchange for their belief and effort would prove to be achievable. So it's nothing short of amazing to stand here 10 years later and think of our hundreds of college graduates living, working, and leading locally and around the country, the thousands of college acceptances received from the 8 cohorts who have now reached that milestone, and the hundreds more young scholars in the pipeline who will soon follow in their footsteps. Over 600 scholars and counting, 92% of whom are or will be the first in their family to graduate from college, and 87% of whom come from low-income backgrounds. These are scholars who will defy the odds and statistics which give them a 15 to 20% chance of earning a college degree. They will chart a new course for themselves, their families, and their communities. The 11-year journey often begins without clear knowledge of this pathway, but with an unwavering belief that their effort, the climb, and their learnings along the way will help them arrive at their eventual destination and lives of leadership. Pathways of purpose, lives of leadership. Our luncheon theme this year reflects what I believe lies at the heart of our shared human existence, our desire to find meaning and purpose in our lives and spend our intellectual, emotional, creative, and psychological energy in pursuit of those ideas. And in so doing, to be of service to others, to contribute to the uplift of humanity. Paul Kalanithi, a gifted young neurosurgeon and writer whose life was cut cruelly short by cancer at the age of 38, framed this great question for us in his searing memoir, published posthumously this past year, When Breath Becomes Air. Facing his own mortality at the end of nearly 10 years of training for what he thought would be his lifelong vocation, Kalanithi, in his own words, became possessed by the question of what, given that all organisms die, makes for a virtuous and meaningful life. When suddenly you face a briefer life than you ever imagined, how does one discern and define that which has the greatest meaning and purpose in whatever time you have left? How does one ensure that the decisions you make about the life you lead reflect that sense of purpose? Beyond, or perhaps rather in the midst of, all the degrees and honors earned, jobs secured, and futures unfolding for our scholars, these are the questions that lie at the heart of the Rainier Scholars journey. One of the absolute greatest joys for me in this work is watching the evolution of each individual scholar as they grow from children filled with hopes and aspirations about their lives into young adults with practical, specific, and clear plans for realizing those dreams. And a few weeks ago, while speaking with a Cohort 1 scholar who is halfway through medical school and facing his first set of board exams next month, I was reminded yet again of the critical work we do, the work of purpose and leadership. You know, Miss Smith, despite many efforts to get the 20-somethings to call me Sarah, I just can't quite get them. I guess I'll always be Miss Smith. You know, Miss Smith, for so many years, my dream has been to become a doctor. But now that this is happening, and I'm practically a doctor, and I know I've made the right career choice, I realize the questions go so much deeper. As a doctor, what will I choose to stand for? What will I advocate on behalf of? How will I lead and impact on those aspects and challenges of healthcare in society that keep me up at night? How will I use medicine in my effort to really impact the world? This is the real journey I'm on. Sometimes all I can do is hang up the phone and give thanks for the honor of knowing young people like this scholar. This scholar whose own parents have labored as a seamstress and a janitor so that their son could dream of a life in medicine, so that their son could have the freedom to ponder poet Mary Oliver's provocative invitation, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" At Rainier Scholars, from a very young age, our students are urged to consider the challenge of defining their personal pathway of purpose, pathways which lead scholars to ultimately embrace their leadership potential and capacity to make change in the world in the ways they deem important. As occurred for me as a young student while sitting in an ethics classroom and discussing Jonathan Kozol's Savage Inequalities, so too do we aspire to push each of our scholars towards that moment or those experiences which enable them to claim their version of the life they hope to lead, one with purpose and leadership at its core. We have no singular definition of leadership at Rainier Scholars, but rather there are as many as there are scholars in the program. For leadership is about having a greater vision for what is achievable and a relentless commitment to pursuit of that, no matter the sacrifices required. So as I look around and consider the scholars in the room today, I see current and future doctors, educators, climate change policymakers, business leaders, entrepreneurs, team captains, student body presidents, lawyers, computer scientists, human rights activists, and who knows, perhaps even a nonprofit leader or two if we get lucky. I see young people who have seized the extraordinary educational opportunities offered by this extended Seattle community and have worked harder than many of us ever do in a lifetime to pursue their pathways of purpose. They are remarkable individuals and inspiring leaders, one and all. So as you hear from scholars today, such as Winston, Abe, Karen, Ascari, and Lennon, as well as the many joining you at your tables, I invite you to be, as I so often am, inspired by their vision of what is possible and their commitment to service and leadership within our great community. May we here make it our collective purpose that scholars like these and so many hundreds of others continue to have the access and opportunity to pursue that most fundamental journey, that of defining a purpose and determining where and how they will choose to contribute and lead in this world of ours, a world so deeply in need of their vision, their perspective, and their inspiration. Thank you again for being here today and for your tremendous support of Rainier Scholars.